Yeah, welcome back. This is in continuation with the previous video lecture where we have seen the different sources of light. We have seen that there are primarily two sources. We call them as natural sources. The other one is artificial sources. And the natural sources, we have seen that sun, stars, moon, and volcanic eruptions, even the lightning which you see in the sky, and some living organisms also, they develop light. Whereas coming to artificial lights, we call them as lamps because they are widely employed for generation of light. They are broadly classified as incandescent lamps, fluorescent lamps, and the latest trend is LED lamps. So, in today's class, we will see about incandescent lamps and the basic fluorescent lamps. What is the principle behind them and what are the applications where we can use these incandescent and fluorescent lamps. So the first one is the incandescent lamp. In this incandescent lamp, it works on the principle of incandescence, which is generally termed for heat-driven light emissions. In these type of lamps, light is produced by heating a filament wire to a very high temperature until it glows, which means that you take a material and you allow current to pass through it because of its resistance, because any material will be having resistance. So because of the resistance, what happens is there will be a heat develops, how much amount of time you are allowing the current and the magnitude of current and the magnitude of resistance. This will give rise to heat which is developed in this material. Now part of this heat is converted into light. There are certain materials which do have this capability of converting this heat energy into light. So now incandescence works on this principle. It simply goes through allowing a current to pass through an element where too much amount of heat is generated, which can be converted into light energy. Which means that this material is supposed to be heated to some high temperature until it glows, which means it emits some light energy. And it was one of the first commercially viable electric light sources. I'll be asking in the examination, explain about the first commercially viable electric source. Then you should write about incandescent lamps, okay? So it was one of the first commercially viable electric light sources and has been widely used for over a century. Now it is being replaced by fluorescent and now LED lamps are coming into picture. But let's get back to the incandescent lamp. This is a simple incandescent lamp. The picture I have taken it from the internet. Normally it's about the choice. Now let's get back before going for this principle of operation. I'd like to remind you a few things. So whenever you are going to design this type of incandescent lamps, the first thing what you should remember is that your elements must develop heat, sufficient heat, which means that it must be allowing current but have high resistance, right? It must not be an insulation. For insulator, generally resistance is very high, but it doesn't allow any current. So you should have a conductor, but it must have a very good resistance because you should get more amount of heat so that you can get more lights. This is one of the important things. Second thing is at these high temperatures, generally what happens is this material, it gets oxidized or gets into chemical reaction with any surrounding materials. So you should ensure that oxidation process will be limited. You should take measures such that your material doesn't get oxidized or vaporized. Sometimes the material gets vaporized also. It is also not good. So these two are the things which you should keep in mind. So your selection of material and your selection of your entire composure, it must be like the element must carry huge amount of current. At the same time, it must have very high resistance, and you should take care about to prevent oxidation and also vaporization of the material. So this is one of the incandescent lamps which is widely used. If you carefully see, this is a bayonet cap which is generally used to fit your bulb lamp into your holder, And see, here you do have a fuse. This is your fuse, which we have seen in the last class, why fuse is used. And this is your lead wire, a very thin lead wire. And this is your glass tube. And this is your tungsten filaments. We call this one as a spider. This is generally used to hold the things. So this is your filament. This filament is your conducting material now. So when current passes through this tungsten filament, then tungsten is a conductor. It is a metal, so it is naturally a conductor, but the fact is that it is having very high resistivity. So it is a very high resistivity conducting material. So too much amount of heat is being generated, and part of it is converted into lights. So that's why you might be using this in your homes. If you turn these things on for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, if you touch the bulb, then you will experience a huge amount of heat which is dissipated on the bulb. See, internally tungsten element is getting heated, and that heat is being radiated over the light bulb or the glass bulb. Even if you turn it on for 15 minutes also, you can experience a heat. See, if you are experiencing the heat on the surface of the bulb, glass bulb, see how much heat would have generated inside. Okay, so this is the principle of incandescent lamp. So the filament is generally made up of tungsten, even though other materials have been used, but tungsten is one good material, a very high resistivity material. So as the temperature increases, this happens because of the more amount of heat which is being generated. This filament, tungsten filament, it emits visible lights and produces a warm yellowish glow. You might be seeing in your homes, in your domestic applications, a warm yellowish glow of your bulb. 40 watts, 60 watts, 100 watts bulb are available. And this filament is enclosed in a glass chamber to prevent the element from oxidation. And also, it is filled with vacuum or inert gas so that it reduces vaporization, and also it prevents oxidation. So the two important things which we have discussed. The first thing is very high resistive material, and next one is a chamber and a vacuum to minimize the oxidation and vaporization. A simple construction. Now, what are the components which you do require? The tungsten filament is prime, the glass chamber, and the vacuum or inert gas to fill that one. Apart from that, there are other things which you might have seen in the picture. Those are also required, but the primary components are these things. Now, what are the advantages of these incandescent lamps? They produce a pleasing quality of light, a warm yellowish color. At the same time, they can produce a warm environment also. During initial times, it will be yellowish color, but if it is done for long times and because of the climate, you can see some sort of reddish color also. And the biggest advantage which they do have is instantaneous illumination. The moment you turn it on, within milliseconds, you can get a very good illumination across your room. They don't have any starting times. The moment you turn it on, you will get the lights, which we call it as instantaneous illumination. They don't have any warm-up time. Okay. The next thing is they can be easily dimmed. This is one of the important things, which you might have seen at your homes also. When the voltage is low, then automatically the brightness decreases. When the voltage is high, the brightness increases. So it's about whether you can dim the light or not. It is just by adjusting the voltage. If you adjust the voltage, the current will be adjusted. If the current is adjusted, then heat will be adjusted. Based upon that, light will be adjusted. Very simple. So you adjust the voltage, currents, and next heats, and next goes the lights. Simple concept. You can easily dim that part. And the biggest advantage, one more advantage, it has very low manufacturing cost because they have been from the past 100 years. And we don't need any external regulating equipment also. So these are the advantages of incandescent lamps. But they do have their own limitations. The biggest thing is that they are very highly inefficient. Most of your energy is converted into heat which you are not able to use. Only a part of your heat energy is being converted into lights, which means if it consumes 100 watts, nearly 90 to 95 watts is being wasted. 90 to 95 watt hours is being wasted as a heat energy, which is of no use for us. Only a 5% is being used for our lighting purposes, which we call it as very poor energy consumption and very poor efficiency. This will lead you to high electricity bills. And second thing is they have a very short lifespan. On an average, they last for about 1000 to 2000 hours. This is one of the important things. And more important thing is that because of their high efficiency, you are supposed to consume more amount of energy, isn't it? If you are consuming more amount of energy, means the energy is coming from coal-based plants most of the times, right? So, which is contributing to higher greenhouse effects. That is not a direct impact; it's an indirect impact, right? So, you do have an environmental consideration also now, because your efficiency is low. You are consuming more amount of energy, which means you are inefficient. If you are getting that energy from the coal-based plants, then you are creating an environmental impact, right? So these are the limitations of incandescent lamps. So that's why these incandescent lamps are now being fading. They are now being replaced by fluorescent lamps and now LED lamps, which are highly efficient, energy efficient. Even the governments are also taking suitable measures to improve the energy efficiency. So that's why these incandescent lamps are being replaced now. 20-25 years back, every home used to have incandescent lamps. Now the governments itself are providing fluorescent lamps, CFL lamps, freely to the home in order to improve the energy efficiency, isn't it? So still we are using these things for table lamps, car headlamps, because these do require instantaneous illumination, right? Flashlights. You use a flashlight, if it illuminates very slowly, then it's no purpose of a flashlight or a car headlamp. Imagine if you do have a car headlamp which starts very slowly. Immediately what happens? Accident will happen. So that's why you do need a lamp which will start immediately. So here in this case you can use incandescent lamps. And also partly for decorating and advertising lightings also. Now we are using them LEDs. We are using LEDs in this place. But still you can use incandescent lamps. This is about incandescent lamps. Now in the next one we will see about fluorescent lamps. Okay.